Okay, so I believe that we have to start uh, at this point. We have a lot of folks still joining. I'm actually on the phone with others. I think one thing about technology is that sometimes they try to take their own space, and so uh, the technologically we are having a little challenge with those trying to connect. I think the internet connectivity is not helping them. But notwithstanding that, we have about 15 people to start with. We are expecting about 112 people to join. So I am very certain that all of them will join before we close the event. And so at this point, I will hand over to our alumni president in the person of Amma Batil to take over the presentations, and then she can moderate that with the VP. Amma, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so excited that you're here today. Thank you for taking time to join us this morning. And so this morning, as you know, we are going to be treating strategic financial management for managers, and we're excited about it, so much so. This is one thing that when we took the class of the Executive Strategic Learning Leadership Masterclass, we weren't able to cover much of. So we're very excited that this is coming our way. So it's nice to see, similar faces, but also the new ones that are here. We say welcome to you all. So briefly, I want to tell you a little bit about the alumni network, and then we will introduce our leadership to you, and then I'll hand over back to Dr. Abbey to give us a couple more information. And so for those that do not know, the alumni network is with it's with the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies, and the purpose of the alumni network is to support the continuing excellence of the institution for leadership studies, especially through the Executive Strategic Learning Leadership Masterclass, which includes the annual events that it's put up, which one is upcoming. Dr. Abbey will give us a little more information on that. Also through cohort programs, webinars, seminars, and also to foster communication between the Institute and the alumni, and also alumni members themselves. And the principal mission is to create a community of active alumni volunteers in support of the institution. So as we know, the institution is doing a lot in the community and in the world around. And so our job is to also help and foster that as we are all spread out around the world, that we'll be able to be the ones representing the institution everywhere that we are. So membership includes everyone that has taken a major program through the institution. Right now, our current membership is made up of all the people that took the Executive Strategic Leadership Masterclass that just ended in July. And so we are about 75 of us that have started with the Alumni Network. And we're hoping that as time goes on, other people that have taken the class or that have taken at least one major program through the Institute will join the Alumni Club. And so our main goals are to foster a strong lifelong connections to fellow alumni, current students, and to the Jacobs-Abbey Global Institute for Leadership Studies. And we also want to enhance alumni support to the Institute through both services and direct financial contributions, because there's a lot of things that will happen that obviously needs money to be able to do that. And so we, as alumni and beyond, want to be able to do that as well. And also to secure the relevant and long-term health of the network through programming and the identification and cultivation of diverse alumni leadership volunteers and groups. So programs such as what we're doing today to help us so that we can both, be strong professionally and also personally within the alumni, but also beyond. And we also want to ensure that activities of the network are strategically aligned with the Institute's goals, and that the network provides input to the Institute's programs and policies as well. So in a nutshell, that is who the Alumni Network that's who we are, and that's our goals and our mission. And at this time, I will ask that Dr. Abbey will put the picture up of all of the alumni leadership so we can see. I know that some of us, some of the leadership are not able to attend this morning's training just because of other things that they have going on. And so we still want to introduce everyone to you so that you can all know who the leadership are. So as you know, as Dr. Abbey said, I am the president of the alumni network right now. So Dr. Abbey, if you can do that for us, please. We have our VP, Clement Jima, and then we have our other VP, Miss Carolyn, for alumni relations. She's actually on right now. I think I saw her a second ago. We have our General Secretary, Miss Uduak Ananaba. She's also on. I saw her name on there. We have Vincent Ocean, who is the Deputy Secretary as well. We have Bill McGill Jones, who is our treasurer. We have Miss Sharon Tete, who is our treasurer. We have our programs coordinator, who is in the person of Mr. William Kwashi, and Miss Lola Tenunowo is also our assistant programs coordinator. And then Mr. Ebenezer Okra is our liaison coordinator. And MD Fayazuddin, I think I said it right.
That's
is,
right.
Yeah, it's also one of our members. So that's the Inspirers Network leadership. In case anybody didn't know that and wants to contact us, we'll give our contact information at the end of the training, so that anybody that has any questions or anything like that can certainly reach out to one of us.
Having us, thank you, Dr. Abbey, for having me to come talk about strategic financial managers, management for managers. Thank you so much for this opportunity. When he did reach out to me, I was like, why are we talking about strategic financial management for managers? Okay, when you talk about strategic financial management, everybody needs it. I mean, you can do it in your own personal finances, or you can do it from an organization's perspective, or even if you're an entrepreneur, you need to have some basic form of strategic financial management for you to survive. Okay, so if you're not a manager, don't worry about this. I'm going to keep this so basic that everybody gets something out of this class. Okay, a little bit about myself. Let's see. As Dr. Abbey said, I'm not going to go into details. I'm the Vice President of Finance and Accounting at Fair Choice. This is a federal credit union for the federal government, for the United States government. I've been there for 6 years. I'm also the treasurer for our Old Students Association, Adisado Old Boys Association in North America. And I was just elected to be the Vice President of the University of Ghana Alumni Association 2002 year group. I used to be an adjunct professor at Australia University, and then a graduate teaching assistant at the University of Maryland, College Park. All right, I worked at the World Bank too for 6 years. And then as you can see, I have a couple of degrees under my belt. The most important thing here is that I'm on LinkedIn. So if you can kind of write down my name somewhere, you can hook me up on LinkedIn and send any questions my way that you may have after this class. Okay, so the last name is Atuahene, Edward Atuahene. So you can look me up on LinkedIn and then send me any questions that you may have. All right. So we'll move on. What are we trying to learn today? I mean, by the end of this class, I want you all to know the definition of strategic financial management, right? As you can see, I took out for managers there because everybody needs some form of financial knowledge with how they manage their finances, okay? And then we're also going to differentiate between strategy and tactics. A lot of people kind of confuse the two, but there are two different strategies to go with this, okay? There's a strategy and then there's a tactic. So we'll go deep into that. And then I hope that by the end of this class, you all will be able to differentiate between the two. Know some basic definitions and meaning of basic financial statements, okay? One thing that people hate about numbers is that when they look at the financial statement, they don't know where these numbers are coming from or what they do mean. So I hope to accomplish that today by letting you know what the numbers mean, okay? You should be able to read, understand, and interpret basic financial statement to aid you with your strategic decision making, okay? it's very important that you as a business owner or as a manager, regardless of where you work, if you work in marketing, if you work in advertising, if you work in IT, you should be able to read basic financial statement to see where the direction of the company is going. Why is that so important? Let's assume you work for Chase, right? And you're able to read a financial statement. You should know where this company is going, and that will help you to make some basic decisions for yourself. And finally, I call this one know the numbers, okay? Do not let the numbers scare you. Just know the numbers and know what they mean, okay? All right. So what is strategic financial management? All we are talking about is managing organizational resources, okay? Making sure that those resources are managed in a well-planned manner, okay? Why is this so important? This is so important because resources are very limited, okay? Resources within organizations are very limited. So for companies to thrive, you've got to use these resources very efficiently, okay? You can't just go about without any plan. If you do things haphazardly, your company will soon be out of business, all right? And then like Dr. Abbey said, if you guys have any questions, you can type it in there, and then maybe Amma might be able to alert me with any questions that you may have, because I don't want this to be a lecture. I want this to be a dialogue between us so that we can really understand what we need to know so we can manage our businesses better, okay? So any questions so far?
No, please.
All right, thank you. All right, so this also helps us to meet our goals and objectives, okay? Whether you are in an organization or it's your personal financial management, you need to have some goals. So personally, what goals do you have for 2021? What goals do you have for 2022? What goals do you have for 2023? Are you trying to buy a house? Are you trying to buy a car? Are you trying to go to college? Are you trying to get a PhD? All these are decisions that you've got to make, right? So you set up your goals, and then you find out how you can use your finances to meet those goals. If you are within an organization, what are some of the goals of an organization, right? You want to meet new product, produce new products. You want to target new markets. You want to bring in, you want to grow as an organization, right? So if you have this planning in place, what this can do to you is it can help you increase your returns, okay? You get better returns, and then you can also maximize your shareholder value, all right? Your investors are very excited because you guys have a plan in place for moving into new market, for producing new products, for doing all these different sort of things. All right, there's also profits. Profits and returns are almost the same thing, your return on investment. So as an investor, if I'm planning to invest in Amazon, I need to know what their strategy is, right? What are they planning to do in the next 5 years? What are they planning to do in the next 3 years? Does those things fit with what I'm planning to do with my returns? If I'm able to align my strategy with this, then I decide on what companies I can invest in, okay? And having a good strategic financial management also help you sustain your business, okay? Your business is sustainable if you have a plan in place. Most companies do not have a plan. That is why there are so many companies that go out of business. You need to have a plan. You need to have a plan, and then you need to stick to that plan as well. So long-term growth and sustainability helps you with strategic financial management. Now, before we go into the strategy and the tactics, I want us to understand financial management as well. What is financial management? One may ask. How do you allocate your resources, right? Every 2 weeks, when you go to where you get paid, every 2 weeks, how do you use those funds for yourself? How do you use it for your family, for your kids? Allocation of resources is very important in managing your finances. You can have a simple budget for yourself, financial reports. It can get very complex depending on the industry that you are in, and have your balance sheets, your income statement, and your cash flow statements. Your balance sheet tells you what your assets are, what your liabilities are, all these different things that go into those balance sheets. Your income statement tells you your revenues, your incomes, and your expenses, and your cash flows. As we all know, cash is very king, right? You cannot do anything without cash. So we say cash is king. So you need to know where your cash is coming from. You need to know your major customers. You need to know your suppliers. You need to know everything as a manager or as an employee of a company, right? So those help you to make good decisions. Let's say, for example, in this pandemic, right, we saw that new car manufacturing has gone down within the United States. Why has that gone down? Because the supply chain is kind of weak right now. Those manufacturers that are manufacturing those different parts are short, right? They had no labor. People were sick. People were not going to work. People were even scared of going to work, right? So that comes down the supply chain and affects new car manufacturing. What does that do to the economy? That increases the price of used cars, okay? So all these have different things that they do to the economy. So new car shortages, now there's a demand for used car. So once the used car demand goes up, the prices for those cars goes up as well, right? So everything has a cascading effect on the economy. So we need to know what our cash flows are. In terms of assets, liabilities, revenue, expenses, receivables, and payables, we'll go deep into that, right? We'll look at the definition of those and how you guys can use that to manage your businesses. And then there's something called the trend or the variance analysis. Okay? So we have a plan, and then we have the all right. All right. Can you put yourself on mute, please? We have a plan, and then we have the actuals. What did we plan to do in 2021, right? So this is set through the budget. So in 2020, we set up a budget. Okay, we plan to grow revenues by 15%. We plan to cut expenses by 10%. We plan to do this. We plan to hire more staff. We plan to cut these employees. So we do all these things in something called a budget, okay? So in 2021, what you do is that you compare your numbers in the budget to the actuals with what is really happening. That is what we call a variance analysis. So if you plan to grow your expenses, your revenues by 15%, and then in January, you see that that trend is not happening. Maybe in January, you were able to grow by 1%, then that's a problem. Then that's when you do something called the root cause analysis. You go to the bottom of it and see what's happening. Why are you getting your revenues? Let's say you work in the hotel industry, right? The hotel industries have been affected by this pandemic, so the customers are not coming in. But you could have a strategic plan in place and say that, hey, we are going to give you a discount, right? If you come in, we're going to throw all these specs in to bring the customers in. So this is what is achieved through financial management, and you have to be very prudent with that. You have to stay on top of your game. In terms of trend analysis, you look at what your peers are doing, right? You look at what the competition is doing. If you're Walmart, your peers are what? Costco, or maybe Target. What is Target doing? Why is Target's revenue growing and ours is shrinking? What is Amazon doing, right? Why are they growing? So you ask all these questions within these meetings and know what your peers and your competition is doing, all right? Now let's go into the nuts and bolts of strategy, okay? Whenever we talk about strategy, we mean long-term. Anytime you hear strategy, think about long-term, okay? Long-term success or vision of companies, that is what is called a strategy, right? So if I decide to set up a new business, right, I'm an accountant. If I decide to open my new accounting firm, what am I thinking about? I need to make sure that in the next 3 years, I'll be around in the next 5 years. So I need to set up a plan. What am I going to do to make sure that I'm here in 3 years? How am I going to grow my customer base, right? So I can start with one customer, which is my wife. And then through her, I can use her to grow my customer base and then have a target to get to maybe about 300 customers in the next 3 years. That is what we call a strategy. Your long-term strategy is to get to 300 customers in 3 years, right? Usually companies get together, right, and accomplish this through a planning process. So in 3 years, if I need to get to 300 customers, that means on average, I need to grow my customer base by 100 customers per year. Do you guys understand? 100 customers per year. So in 3 years, that will get me to 300. Okay, let's assume in the first year, I'm able to grow my customers by 10 customers. Then there's a problem, right? This is what strategy does to you. So you go to the root cause and find out what's going on. Why was I not able to get 100 customers in the first year, right? What did I do wrong? Then maybe I need to put in more marketing dollars within the budget in the second year to make sure I grow my customers by more than 100 customers, because now I'm way behind. I'm way behind in the first year by 90 customers. So in the second year, I need to grow my customers by 190. Okay, so let's go to the second year. When we get to the second year and I'm able to grow my customers base to 50, right? Now I'm at 60. Then I know that there's a problem with my strategy, right? So now I'm going to sit down and look at my strategy again and see what did I do wrong, right? Remember your SMART goals. Your SMART goals need to be specific. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be attainable. Maybe when I was doing my strategy in 2020, I was too aggressive, right? This is me opening up my accounting firm. I have no history. I have no testimonials, and then I want to grow it by 300 people. So in the second year, I only got 60 people. So I need to come back to the table and say, hey, this thing is not working, right? Maybe I need to revise some of the numbers there, maybe bring it to 100 or bring it to 150. Or maybe we are not marketing enough. We are not penetrating the markets that we need to. So let's think about the whole thing. So you bring everybody on board. When you're having these planning sessions, everybody comes in. You bring in the IT folks, you bring in the marketing folks, bring in the accountants, everybody has to be on board, okay, for this strategy to work. Strategic plans are usually between 3 to 5 years, but it could be longer or shorter based on the industry that you are in. Okay, I don't really know much about mining industries, but maybe they could have 7-year mining plan. Or maybe if you're an airline company, you could have a 2-year strategic plan, right? Ghana Airways, let's take Ghana Airways for example. We hear rumors that they are planning to come back again. So in their planning sections, they need to know what they want to do. What kind of markets do we want to serve, right? We made a mistake. First of all, we went out of business. So we need to come back to the table and see what mistakes we did in the past. What markets are we going to? Are we going to fly to Rome, Milan, Heathrow, Ajax, Amsterdam, New York, okay? Then we look at the numbers. What numbers are we going to get from those routes? If those routes are not profitable, then we're not going to do it at all, okay? Let's say we are running route to Rome, okay? And we are making losses in Rome, and we are making so much profit in New York, in the New York market. Then management need to sit down and say, this is not working. What are we doing wrong with the room routes that we are making losses? Because what's going to happen is that the profits from the New York routes are going to, right, supplement the losses that we are making to the room routes. So we need to make a decision, right? That is why strategy is so important. I mean, I can go on and on. Industry like a bank, if you work for a bank, right, you have so many competitors, right? So let's take a bank. Let's take my bank, for example, right? We are in the Washington, D.C. market. And according to a survey that we did, in our own geographical area, we have about 2,000 financial institutions. Okay? 2,000 financial institutions. What does a bank do? Right? It's very basic. What banks do is that they take deposits from customers and then they lend it out to customers. So they take deposits, pay interest on the deposit to one customer, lend it out to another set of customers, right? And then they make interest on those. So for a bank to thrive and survive, the lending, which is the loans that they are giving out to their customers, right? The interest rate has to be higher than what they are paying out to those who are depositing, right? Do you guys get a scenario? So if there are 2,000 financial institutions in the Washington, D.C. market, how can we get the market share that we need to be able to be sustainable in the next 3 years? in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years? 2,000 people competing for the same thing. Simple. We take deposits and then we give loans. Take deposit and give loans. So what you need to do is to think about differentiation. How can you differentiate yourself through your strategy to be able to make sure that you are getting these customers in and keeping them? Remember, you have to keep them, right? Because if they come in, get a loan from you and pay off their loan and then go away, then you are losing that customer. What are you doing to keep that customer over the long term? Okay. Let's take another industry, for example. What is the most common industry in Ghana? Maybe the transportation industry, right? If you look at a company like STC, which is the State Transport Corporation, they've been around for a long time. What have they been doing right to stay in business for this long time, right? The first thing that you think about is that STC is very safe, right? So you can look at their accident rates. You can look at the comfortability of the buses, how the buses can be able to transport you from point A to point B. You hardly hear that an STC has broken down, all right? These are all things that are done in the boardroom, and then the customers see the importance of taking an SCC as opposed to going to take a different bus, right? There's something called a VIP, and there's all these different buses. So what am I doing as an organization to differentiate myself so that I can get this customer base? All right. Amma, do we have any questions so far?
No, not so far in the chat room. There's no questions, please.
Okay, there's a problem with that. It's either people are not understanding what I'm saying or people are getting what I'm saying. Anytime I don't get questions when I'm teaching.
I mean, I'm wondering if we can pause and have people ask questions if they want to maybe verbally ask instead of typing in the.
Excellent. I mean, if you want to ask any question about what we've done so far, we've talked about strategy, we've talked about financial management, we've talked about basic financial statements. You guys have about 5 minutes to ask those questions.
I see Caroline's hand up. I'm not sure if she. You're muted.
Hi, everyone. This is Caroline Chelagat, and thank you so much, Professor Ed Atuahene. I hope I pronounce it right. And nice. I have a question for you. You mentioned about discount revenue, and you gave a scenario whereby you want to do marketing, whereas also maintaining your financial status, right? How do you balance that margin, especially working in a competitive market?
Right. So thank you so much for that question. That's a very good question. Right. I like the word that you use. The word that you use that starts with a D. Why do I like it? Because we are going to talk about that in a couple of slides. So I'm not going to mess it up. But let's say you work in an organization where you've got to throw in marketing dollars, right? Think about it this way. Let's say we have hotel chains, right? We have all these different hotels. We are coming out of the blocks from this pandemic, right? We've been home. There's all this pent-up demand for people to travel. People want to travel. People want to go out there, right? And I'm a Hilton, Marriott, Best Western, all these different hotels are there, right? What am I going to do for the customers to come to me? So I've got to make a decision. We've got to go to the drawing board. What are we doing? What incentives are we doing for the customers to come to us, right? So even though we are looking for revenues, we are looking for long-term revenues. We want to make sure that when the customer comes to us, they have that experience that they are going to stick with us, okay? They stick with us over the long term. So let's say if the customer comes to us today, let's give him some incentive, a discount that the other hotels are not doing so that they can come to us tomorrow. They can come to us in 3 years' time. They can use us as their main hotel. You are losing a small discount, which we'll go into. It's called a tactics. We are using the tactics to build the strategy, okay? But tactically, we are giving them a discount, which is today. We are going to lose, if we are supposed to make $1,000 revenue, we are giving out $100 discount. So we are going to lose $100 and make $900. But think about the long term. This customer will come here next year. They might come here in 6 months' time. They might go tell their friends. They'll tell their family, go to Hilton, go to this. They gave me a discount. Refer a friend. So we are losing $100 to make sure that we build that long-term relationship with the customer. Does that make sense?
Yes, correct. That was very clear. Thank you.
Any question? Don't be scared, guys. It's not accounting. All right. So let's move on. So we are going to move into the tactics, okay? So like I said, there's a difference between strategy and tactics. Tactics is what we are doing now, okay? So when you guys show up to work on Monday, you are helping to build a strategy through the tactics, okay? You need to be able to differentiate between the two. That is short term. So it's a short-term positioning to accomplish the strategic vision. All right, what does that mean in English? It means that what are we doing now to meet our goals for 5 years, to meet our goals for 10 years, to meet our goals for 15 years? There's a reason why a lot of companies don't make it, okay? When cell phones came about, there was a cell phone company from, I think, Norway called Nokia, depending on where you come from and how you want to pronounce it, okay? Nokia phones. And those were the real deal in the early 2000s, right? Everybody had a Nokia phone. Those were good, right? But fast forward to 2021, where are those phones now? What happened to them? Okay. What were they doing when those profits were high? Were they just packing up those cash flows, or were they innovating? Were they innovating through research and development to make sure that they stay in business? I don't know. I'm not part of Nokia. I don't know what they did. If you live in the United States, there's another company called Blockbuster, okay? I hear a story that Netflix approached Blockbuster to sell themselves to them, right? So the owners of Netflix were like, okay, we want you guys to come buy us out and everything. And they were like, oh, I mean, this internet thing is not going to work and everything. People will still come to us and rent DVDs from us, okay? If you have the chance, go look online and look at their vision, the mission for Blockbuster. It wasn't even aligned with what they were doing, right? They talk about community and this, and then you read that strategic vision and you're like, okay, this is not even aligned with what you guys are doing, okay? We understand that you guys want to rent out DVDs and everything, but it needs to be aligned. What are you telling your customers? So everybody should be on the same page, from the security guard at the door all the way to the CEO. When we are building our strategy, we need to be on the same page. You don't want the CEO saying one thing and then your employees telling the customers different thing. That sends a wrong message, okay? So how do we attain that, or how do we achieve that? We achieve that through the tactics, okay? Right? We focus on the now with an eye on the strategy, okay? Focus on what you are doing now. So effective business thrive where the strategy drives the tactics, okay? We are not just going out there to do whatever we want to do to maintain our market share now. We have a strategy in place and we need to stay on course. That's why once in a while, if you work in organizations, they bring everybody together. Maybe if it's a huge organization, they send an email to remind everybody what the strategy is, okay? Because people tend to forget. A lot of people tend to forget what our goal is, okay? A lot of people tend to forget where we are trying to go to. It's like in leadership, we call this purpose, okay? You need to have a purpose to what you do, all right? What am I doing today to make sure I get to point B? What are you doing now? If you want to be a chartered accountant, why are you taking law classes? Why are you taking classes in IT? Right? The tactics need to be to match your strategy. I want to be a chartered accountant, so I'm going to take accounting classes. Okay? If you're in the business of producing computers, stick to what you are good at. All of a sudden, people will come and say, oh, now we see that car tires are making so much profit. And then all of a sudden, you turn around and you start producing car tires. Everybody knows you to be a Dell. So stick to what you are doing at and perfect that game, okay? Don't just be running around. So build your tactics so that you meet your long-term goals, okay? Sometimes the strategies may be wrong. Don't get me right. Not all planning comes out the right way. I can give you a real life example about what we did last year, right? 2 years ago, like I said, my company, I'm the vice president for a bank that deals with civilian federal employees, okay? So there's the Navy Federals of the world, there's a PenFed, and then there's Fair Choice. So Navy Federal deals with Navy, right? Navy employees and their families. PenFed deals with the military, right? And then we'll deal with civilian employees. So what happens is that a lot of people don't know about us because our niche is so small. Our branches are within the federal government buildings, okay? So through consultation with our customers, we found out that accessibility to our branches was very difficult. So we had a strategy in place, a 3-year plan. We went to our customers and we asked them, what do you guys want to see? And then overwhelmingly, they came back to say that they want to have access to us, okay? So in our strategic plan, what we said was that, okay, we are going to build a branch outside of the federal government buildings, okay? And then we did a survey. The survey came out, and then we saw where most of our customers were doing business, right? And that was in Northern Virginia. All right, we put a plan in place to build a branch there to serve them. Fast forward to last year, March 2021, the pandemic hits. All that strategy is out of the window, okay? So you can go into this strategic plan, have the best laid plans, but you have external factors that you cannot control. Do not say that because it's in the plan, so we are still going to build a branch, all right, right? Right now, you're in a survival mode. Customers are scared to go use your ATM machines. People are in the house. People are not going anywhere. Why are you still going to build a branch, right? So what we did last year, summer of last year, was to get together again and revise the strategy. We look at it, we are like, okay, this branch idea is not going to work again. So let's come up with a new idea, okay? And let's do this, let's do that, and revise that strategy. So do not do a strategic plan and put it there and let it just be the living and breathing document. Let it be a live document. If things are not working, you can go in there and tweak them and revise your tactics to meet the new strategy, okay? Don't be like a Blockbuster or a Nokia. All right, any questions?
Yes, we have a question from Edward. And Edward is asking, how important is it to get to the people that we are designing a product or service for them in financial management?
All right, that's an excellent question, right? Like I said, when we're doing our planning analysis, we went to the people, we went to the customers, right, to ask them what they need. And then they told us what they want. The most important things that you can see in business is the people, your customers. That's one of the most important keys, right? Because you can have the best idea, the best product on the market. If you don't have the customers buying those products, they are not going anywhere, right? You've got to price it right. You have to make sure you have the market share. You do everything right, but the people are so important. The people, as we'll talk about later on, there are two kinds of people. You have your internal people and then your external people, your employees, very important, and then your external customers. So if you are designing products and you are bringing new products, you need to go out there and do the research. You know, before I started going into the board meetings or the senior management meeting, One of the things that I hated doing was all those surveys that I get, right? Sometimes you go to a bank and do a transaction and they send you a survey. Hey, this is a quick survey. Can you just answer a couple of questions as to your interaction with us? How did you find out? As soon as I see those emails, I delete them. I used to delete them until I started going to board meetings and seeing how those surveys were so important to the organization, right? So if you want your organization to thrive, you need to go out there to the members and ask their opinion. If you are a bank and your customers want an ATM machine on 4th Street, and you go build the ATM machine on 11th Street, you don't know that because you haven't asked them. If you do a simple survey, they'll tell you, hey, most of our kids go to the YMCA on 4th Street, and the YMCA takes cash, and we need an ATM machine on 4th Street. Why are you putting the ATM machine on 7th Street? You see what I'm saying? So the members or the customers are so important in everything that we do.
Yes, thank you very much for answering, Edward. We also have a hand raised by Amma Botsie, I believe not our president, but somebody else. Maybe you can go ahead and unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I was asking if it's me or Amma.
It is you, actually. It is you that.
Okay.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask that what if you are in a type of business where you serve the clients one time, kind of like catering, maybe you cater for a wedding one time. How do you build your clientele if you use your clients for just one time? I know sometimes you say word of mouth can do that, but how do you move forward to build more clients through that? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I think if you can clarify what kind of business, I'm yet to think, maybe because I'm on the spot. What kind of business?
Giving an example as catering.
Or like cooking for people, catering?
Yeah, for weddings and stuff like that.
All right. Okay, so I don't think even catering is a one-time event, right? Because after they get married, think about they're going to have babies. They're going to have birthday celebrations. They're going to have different things. So what you need to do as a caterer is to kind of find a way to get most of your customers, okay? Find a way to get those revenue streams in place. First of all, you need a lot of customers. You need to make sure that you are doing the food right, you are treating them right, giving them the right pricing, and then squeezing businesses out of them, right? So as you guys are talking about the wedding and the wedding reception and everything, and people are excited about the food, then you start talking about, hey, how about your wedding anniversary? How about the baby shower? We are here to serve you, right? Make sure that you are making the most use out of your customer, because these are services, right? These are services that you are providing to somebody. So if you give them a good service, you are sure that they are going to come back to you for additional services. Who wants to cook themselves when they're having a party with 100 people? They want to make sure that they are paying the money to somebody to take care of that for them, so that doesn't become a burden. So you, the business owner, have to find a way of getting more business out of the same people. Repeat, we call it repeat businesses, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, I don't see any other question on the chat. You can, Prof.
All right, so let's move on. So what are the key takeaways from our first section of this this webinar or this teaching? Financial management, how you allocate your company resources for profitability, okay? We are in the business to make profit. So think about profit. We call it the bottom line. All right. Strategic financial management focuses on long term. If you don't get anything out of today's teaching, always remember that strategy means long term. Okay. Sometimes we, the business people, we get into the habit of throwing all these terminologies around just to confuse people, right? But when you think about strategy, think about long term. So anytime people say, your husband or your spouse say, I'm going for a strategic meeting, all they are going to do is that they're going to have a long-term planning section, how their company can survive for the long term, okay? Strategic planning sections varies by organization, by industry, or by sector, okay? So whether you are in the catering business, whether you are in the sewing business where you sew clothing, whether you are in the hotel business, whether you are a football owner, whether you are in a mining sector, in banking, every industry is different. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, okay? So right now I work in banking. If I get a job in mining, I need to change my mindset. Everything is different. If I get a job in an airline company, even though the accounting is the same or the basic rules are the same for the accounting, I need to change the way I think, okay? Where am I making the most out of my back? If a route is not doing well, and I'm the CFO or the CEO of Ghana Airways, we'll go in there and then we'll do the analysis to see why this route is making losses for us. And then if we need to shut it down, we'll shut it down. It's easier for me to shut down a route that is making losses to Rome or China or something than the whole company to go down. And that's one of the most things that we are missing as Black-owned businesses or maybe minority-owned businesses. We don't make the hard decisions. Close down a route and focus on where you are making money from. If I'm making money from New York, then I'm going to focus on there. If there need to be some things that I need to do for the room market to make sure that I turn that market around, I'm going to do it. Maybe I go to the customers who fly the airline and ask them, what's going on? Why is it that you guys are not taking our route? And then New York guys are taking it. Then they come to me and say, oh, we don't like your airplanes. Your airplanes are too old. That's a golden nugget for me. So next time when I'm going into my strategic planning session, I'm thinking about how I'm going to replace those fleets that goes to Rome. Do you guys get it? How I'm going to replace those? Maybe if I start replacing the fleet, we might not have the money now, so we might start with one. If there are 5 planes going to Rome, we can start with one. And then we need to make sure the customers are aware, market the heck out of it, and let them know that we have a new DC, whatever, Boeing, whatever, 2021 flight going from Accra to wherever, to Rome. We need you guys to come on board, market the heck out of it to make sure you turn that route around. If you've done all this, you bought about 5 planes and you are still making losses with that route, then it's time to make a hard decision and close that route, close it down. And that's where you need strong leadership, okay? Right? Because sometimes we tend to get into the emotions. Oh my God, these guys are going to lose their jobs. What are these pilots going to do? And this, and then we tend to hang on for so long, and then the whole company goes down, and then everybody loses their job. Right? The whole Ghana Airways goes down because we couldn't make that hard decision of closing down a segment. We call them business segments, okay? Think about it this way. Look at Home Depot, Lowe's, all these huge companies. Sometimes Lowe's or Home Depot will come and build a store in an area, right? And within 2-3 years, that store is closed down. Why? Because they are not, the numbers that they got when they were doing their strategy does not match the actual numbers that they are getting now. So they need to take that hard decision and close that segment down. And then they move on to the next place. Okay, we do our market analysis. We see that Woodbridge, Virginia, they need a Home Depot there. We go in there, build that store, and then that store start making us money. Then we keep it there. And we go to the next place, Fredericksburg. All right. We spend about I just read an article on the internet where a company, Ford, was it Ford? Yeah, Ford is closing down their Indian plant. Do you know how much it's going to cost them? It's going to cost them about $1 or $2 billion to close down the Indian plant, right? But it's very easy to close down the Indian plant than to keep sustaining a business that is not making you profit for the whole Ford to go down. So one section of the business can go down, but we don't want the whole thing to go down. They are going to lose $4 billion to close that section for the Indian market. They did the analysis there. They wanted to capture the market share. India has a lot of population. They went in there with all these bells and whistles. And now, fast forward 5 years or 6 years down the line, it's not working. So the CEO came out and was like, hey, we need to close down this place. Let's close it down. They tried to get partnership with other car making companies, Tata, all these different companies. That didn't work. Shut it down and move on. Okay. So that's our key takeaway from this section. Strategy. When you think about tactics, think about what you are doing now. But your tactics need to be aligned with your strategy. Okay. All right. So this is where I mentioned that Caroline's question about something that starts with a B was very important. Okay. So what's the key to keep moving with this? What key is keeping this guy moving? This is a question. And Caroline mentioned it earlier on. It starts with a B. All right. I'm going to give you another one, another image, maybe a better one. This is me.
Hey, we move.
With my big stomach, right? I'm trying to lose weight, but it doesn't seem to go, right? I can't seem to shut it off. But as you guys can see, my feet is not on the ground. Right? So what's keeping me afloat? What keeps me going? It's a question to the whole group.
Paddling.
Okay.
Balancing.
Balance. The key word here is balance.
Okay.
I'm hearing myself. I'm having echoes. So if the technicians can feel it. The key word here is balance. Okay. In everything that we do in business, we need to find balance. Let's find the right balance, the right mix of products, the right mix of services to make sure that we are surviving over the long term. All right. That is why I personally believe that the financial statement is called the balance sheet, because whatever you do, it's got to balance. When you put in money into the business, something has to offset it to make it balance. Okay. So it's similar to riding a bike. Let's find that balance. Right. And then a lot of businesses tend to overdo things, right? So we are making so much money in this region, so let's just put all our eggs there. Then they put all their eggs in that region, and then we lose a main customer there, and then the whole business starts to crumble. Let's find the right balance. Make sure that we have different, if you're a caterer, have different sessions or different revenue streams within the catering industry so that when you lose a customer, it doesn't take you down. Find the right balance, okay? I was watching a program on TV. It's called The Profit, okay? And this guy goes in there to different businesses and try to rescue them by investing his own money into the business and then getting shares of the company. So he goes to this particular business, and then the business has only one customer. That customer is bringing in about 95% of the revenue for the business. You guys think that's a balanced approach?
No, I don't think so, because the day this guy pulls off, you are finished.
The day something happens to the guy, the day this guy gets hit by the proverbial bus, the day he dies, decides to go to your competitor, you are done. So this guy was like, so how long have you been dealing with this particular customer? He's like, oh, we've been dealing with him for the past 8 years. How did you survive dealing with one customer for 8 years? One customer gives you 95% of your business. So this guy comes in, he's called Marcos Demiones. He comes in, it's like, we need to diversify our revenue streams. We need to move away from this customer, okay? If you don't understand business, what you'll be saying is that, hey, this guy is trying to get us out of business and he's trying to make us lose our major customer. No, he's trying to make sure that he gives you the balance you need to be able to sustain yourself over the long period of time. Remember, we are in business to survive over a long haul. We want to make sure that our business stays beyond us. It goes from generations to generations. When you look at the BMWs of the world, when you look at the Mercedes-Benz of the world, when you look at all these different companies, they've stayed in business for so long because of the balance that they have with their approach, okay? So let's think about balance, okay? Why this is so important is that we need to go to look at some basic definitions of our basic financial statement, okay? Anytime we hear assets, you know, people throw these words about assets. What are assets? What are assets, right? Our assets are basically the resources that are owned by the business, okay? In a layman's term, I open a company, right? I put in cash, $100,000 cash. Ed has opened the Atuahene financial company. That $100,000 cash become an asset for the business. So right off the back, my business has $100,000 invested in it, okay? That is what we call an asset. Out of that $100,000, we can decide to go purchase a printer, okay? Or a photocopy machine. Or maybe if it's depending on the type of business, we can decide to purchase a car, right? That car also becomes an asset for the company. So these are resources that are owned by the business, okay?
Prof, I think you are muted.
Yes. With assets, you have an economic value over time. Okay, so think about your car. Okay, car is an asset. When you buy the car today, you use it over time, right? Usually over 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years before you decide to change it. So that car becomes your asset. So think about economic value. What am I getting from that particular thing? Okay. So when you're a business and you are putting money into your assets, make sure that the assets is generating you money so that you can have money coming in, okay? If you open a restaurant, your assets are your equipment in the kitchen. If you go there and you go buy scrappy equipment, like used equipment, right? Let's say your $100,000 that you put in the business, instead of you going to buy brand new equipment for $60,000, you want to cut corners and you go buy equipment for $15,000, thinking that you are smart. What's going to happen? In the middle of a very, very big order, your stove just cuts out. I mean, things are just messing up. You need to go bring a repairer in. He comes in there, repairs the thing. You do your thing, you go. You're throwing all this money into repairing, and then it's causing you delays, okay? Now you are not meeting your orders on time. Sometimes the customers get their orders and then there's smoke in the food and everything, all right? Think about the long term, guys. Think about long-term sustainability. Invest in the right tools to make sure that you're able to give your customers the best product, okay? Because assets have future economic benefits, right? Make sure that you are getting the future benefits. The opposite of an asset is a liability. Anytime we hear liability, we think it's a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. It's not a bad thing as a business owner to go for loans. It's not bad, okay? It's a bad thing if you go for bad loans. So if you go for bad loans, then we have a problem. But as a business owner, do not be scared of taking loans. I tell my friends all the time, like, oh, I need this money to do this. I'm like, why don't you go to the bank? Oh, no, I don't want to deal with the bank. Come on. If you need money, go to the bank and go get it. Make sure you have a plan in place. Make sure you're getting the right interest charges. I know it's very, very expensive to do business in Ghana. I get it. Because these guys are charging about 20% on interest for borrowing, right? My mortgage here is 3%. 3%. 30-year mortgage. So I know, but you cannot look at the financial statements of a Standard Chartered in Ghana or a Barclays and not see a liability on there. They are also borrowing money, but you need to do it in a prudent way, okay? So these are resources that are owed by the business, liability, okay? So let's take my $100,000 as an example. How did I come up with the $100,000? Okay, maybe I borrowed $50,000 from my wife to be paid in 5 years. I've got an asset on my books for $100,000, which is the cash. I've got a liability for $50,000. You guys get a concept? And then I have to pay her back in 5 years. So that becomes the liability, the debt, okay? The owing, the borrowing. That has to be settled over time, 5 years. Usually 5 years. There's a long-term liability and a short-term liability. Long-term is 30 years, like a mortgage. Short-term is 2 years, 5 years, your car loans, okay? And then it's a transfer of economic benefit. So what she's doing by giving me the $50,000 is that she's transferring the $50,000 into the business. So there's a transfer of economic benefit, right? The $100,000 that I have in cash, are you guys following? This is I don't want to keep it very complex. I want to make it very simple. So I've got $100,000 on one side. Think about the balance. Think about the bicycle, okay? I've got $100,000 sitting on my right hand. I've got $50,000 from my wife as a loan, right? Am I balanced? Am I balanced? Shake your head or give me a thumbs up if you think I'm balanced. Okay, now I can see that you guys are paying attention. $100,000 on the asset side, $50,000 on the liability side. I'm out of balance. When you're riding a bicycle and you're out of balance, what happens to you?
You fall.
You fall. That is why so many companies go out of business, because they are out of balance. All right. So what do I need to make sure I do to get myself in balance? I'm going to look for equity. Okay. A lot of time people hear about equity and then they get nervous. Equity means that what am I putting into the company to make sure I balance? 100,000, 50,000 debt, and 50,000 equity. Now we are in balance. We've got 100,000 on the asset side. We've got 50,000 on the liability side. We've got 50,000 equity. Okay. Equity is the resources that are accumulated over time. Equity is the amounts that we put into our businesses. So if I go around, right, the $50,000, if I go to my friend Benjamin and I ask him for $25,000, right, that means that $25,000 is coming from my friend Benjamin into the business. So he has a $25,000 equity in the business. Okay. You guys get it? So it's called an owner's equity, a shareholder's equity, depending on where you come from, or a stockholder's equity. So you've got $100,000 in assets. Those are your resources owned by your business that has economic value over time. You've got your liabilities, the loan from my spouse. You've got equity, $25,000 from my friend Benjamin, and then you got $25,000 from me to start my business. So I'm $100,000 in balance. Even though the money is coming from different sources, we've got to balance. Always remember the bicycle, okay, or the seesaw. So if you look at the financial statements from today, you need to be able to look at them, look at their assets, look at their liabilities, and look at their equity. Anytime you look at those numbers, all those numbers are the same. On the asset side, if you see $100,000 there, a combination of the liabilities and the equity should get you to $100,000. Regardless of the company, you can go online and pull Amazon's financial statements now. You can pull Google. You can pull anybody. Go to the New York Stock Exchange or the Yahoo financials and pull any company. You can also look at your personal financial statements, right? So on a personal level, you've got a house, you've got a car, right? You've got a mortgage. So your house is your asset, right? The house itself, the building is your asset. But the way the structure is, you cannot pay off the building, the $600,000 building. So what do? You go for a mortgage, right? Unless you live in Ghana, because I know that the guys in Ghana, they do a lot of miracles. They buy all these huge houses for cash. I have no idea how they get it done. I really, really wish to learn how they get it done. So if you guys have any ideas how these guys are buying $3 million mansion in East Legon for cash, let me know, please. I need to know this. But let's take the American economic system, for example, right? You go for a mortgage. So your personal life, your asset is your house. You guys understand? The house is of the building, $600,000. You go for a mortgage. Very few banks will finance you 100%. Okay? So think about it. What they finance you is what? 80% or maybe 90% of the amount, right? So you go for a mortgage for, let's say, $500,000. Okay? That $500,000 is a liability. Remember, I told you that not all liabilities are bad. Okay? Because you need to have a house, you need to live in a house, so you need a mortgage. So you go for the mortgage. So you have a $600,000 house, $500,000 mortgage. Are you in balance? Yes or no?
Yeah.
So you are missing $100,000, right? So what brings you to balance? The bank will tell you to put in $100,000 of your own money. That is why we call it equity. Have you guys heard the term? I've got 100,000 equity in my house. Now you know where that term came from, right? I've got $100,000 equity. Think about the equity. When the house appreciates in value, right? The house was originally for $600,000. Now the house is worth $800,000. You still owe the bank $500,000. You put in $100,000. Are you in balance? No, because the house is now $800,000. You owe $500,000. There's a $300,000 difference. You put in $100,000 of your own money. Now your equity has grown by $200,000.
That's true.
You see what I'm saying? So this is a good side. This is a good side of buying a house. As a business, when you're making all these decisions strategically, you need to be thinking about all this. Where am I buying my house? Location, location, location. Where are you setting up your business? Is it in a location where the assets for the business are going to grow in value or they are going to decline? Conversely, your house could decline. That's what we call the house is below water, or it's falling under the, it's below the water, right? The house you bought was for $600,000. Now the house is worth $400,000. So on your asset side of the balance sheet, you are now at $400,000. You still owe the bank $500,000. Right? Your equity within the house becomes a negative because now your house is underwater, right? The value of the house is $400,000. Your $100,000 is gone because the house is less how much you bought it for. Now your equity is negative, right? So think when you're going to take loans as business owners, as individuals, think about all these different variables. When people approach me and they want to go buy loans, these are some of the things that I tell them. How much do you have as down payment? You need to make sure that you are building up this. This is called equity, right? So if somebody is a real estate investor, right, and they are very successful, what makes them successful is how much equity they have in their properties. So these guys are buying houses all over the place like Donald Trump. Right? I know you guys don't like him, but he's a very, very good business owner, right? Regardless of what you think about him politically. He's got all this real estate in good places. What makes him very rich is this thing, this equity. He's buying houses for low, renovating them, putting in money, and then sometimes sell them or use them for hotels on a high and building up all those equity. Okay. If you decide to invest in, let's say, buy a stock, right, in Ghana or wherever you live, in Kenya, in China, think about this equity thing that I'm talking about, okay? Very, very important. Think about that. How much equities do the owners have in their business? Okay. How much, it's called skin in the game. If you buy a house and then you have a lot of money invested in the house and your kids are running around and destroying things, what do? You get so angry, right? Because anything that goes down, the value of the house is going down. You guys get it? Now let's move over to the income statement, right? Or the profit and loss statement. That's what others call it, profit and loss statement, or P&L. Some people call it P&L. It's a fancy term for profit and loss. All right. Your profit and loss means your revenues and your expenses, your inflows and your outflows. So profit and loss deals with your tactics. What am I doing now to bring in more revenues? Remember tactics and strategy? Balance sheet is more strategic. Look forward, long term. But what am I doing today to bring in revenues? What expenses am I giving away? Expenses is what goes out of the business. Income is what the business generates. Okay. So let's say in the first year of your business, right? This is the first year. I'm now trying to build this business, this accounting business. I've got 100,000 invested in. I have nothing to do, right? I need to pay back some of the interest for the loan that I took. With the investors, the 25,000 for my friend, and then the 25,000 for me, that can wait because I'm the one putting in that money in the business. But for the loan that I took, remember, every loan comes with an interest charge. So in year one, I've got to pay an interest on the loan, the 50,000 loan I got from my wife. I've got to pay for the office rental, right? I've got to pay my employees. I've got to pay for insurance. I've got to pay for what else? Can somebody mention some expense?
Property tax.
You got to pay for your property taxes, right? And because some is not waiting for you just because it's a new business, so they are not going to charge you taxes. They are not waiting. They want their taxes now. You guys get it? You've got to pay for your insurance expense. All these expenses, those go on the income statement as expenses. All right. And your revenues, depending on the company that you are doing, is what money people bring into the business. So think about the business structure. It could be a sales business or a service business. If you're into sales, then you are selling things. You are selling a car. You are selling machines. You are selling things at a store. That's sales. How much are you selling to bring in revenues to your business? If you are in a service organization, like a mechanic, you are providing services to people. So it's very easy concept, but people just get it confused because they hear all these fancy words. If I'm a mechanic and I'm providing services to people, I've got to wait for people to bring their cars to me for me to service their cars, okay? How do I ensure that I get repeat businesses? First of all, I've got to do their cars on time. Not GMT, not Ghana Man time, on time. If your car is going to be ready tomorrow, when you come here tomorrow, your car has to be ready, right? If something happens and I can't fix your car by tomorrow, as a business owner, what am I going to do? I'm going to proactively call you and let you know that, hey, Amma, or hey, Jacobs, Sammy, this and this happened and I couldn't get your car done. So I'll make sure I get your car to you on Tuesday. Customer service, so important, right? Because you want to make sure that you are being truthful, you are charging them the right prices, you are making sure that you are fixing their cars, right? How many times have you gotten your car from the mechanic and then they end up breaking down again? And then you got to go back to them, right? So what they think is that they are smart. Okay, I charge you for 100,000, 9,000 Ghana cedis, but I bought a cheap material to fix your car, and in 6 months' time, I want you to come back, right? Think about it. I'll come back in 6 months' time. I'll come back in 1 year time. But in 1.5 years' time, if somebody gives me an alternative, what am I going to do?
Go to them.
I'm going to go to them. So you are in a business of providing customer service. Make sure you are being honest. Make sure you are being truthful. You are pricing them right, and you are sticking to your time frames so that they come. You want them to bring their wives to you. You want them to bring their family. You want them to bring their church members. Everybody comes to you because yours is to provide service. Let's switch to sales. Let's say I'm what are some of the stores? Game or ShopRite. So I have a lot of competitors, right? Lowe's, Home Depot. I'm selling fridge. Am I the only one who sells fridge? No. There's about 200,000 places that I can get the same fridge from when I go online and type in the fridge. So what am I going to do to differentiate myself to sell my fridge? I can differentiate myself through pricing, right? So you look at the your peers. What are your peers doing? Because the fridge manufacturers, what they do is that they manufacture the fridge for $400, and then they tell you to sell it and make a profit. So you can sell it for $1,000. If you sell it for $1,000, you're making a $600,000 profit. How much of that profit are you willing to forego to make sure you are beating your peers for them to come to you, for the customers to come to you? So you could grow your business by increasing your volumes, right? Make sure that you are getting all the customers to you because you have the low price strategy, which is the Walmart. Or you could also differentiate yourself by being the Costco, where your customers can come to you if they are in a membership. And the way you are differentiating yourself on price is to giving them things in bulk, right? So even though you need just one tissue, I'm going to sell you 6. You guys see the difference? I'm going to sell you 6. If you buy one at Walmart, you're going to buy it for $1, but I'm going to sell you 6 for $5.50. You don't need the extra 5, but because you are saving 50 cents, you go to Costco. These are all strategies, business strategies that they are taking. Okay, so let me save the customer 50 cents and then let them come to me. Because guess what? If I go and buy one, I have to go to Costco, Walmart 6 times during the year. But if I go to Costco and buy it for $5.50, not only am I saving 50 cents on that purchase, it's saving me a trip to Costco, right? Yeah. So these are ways to grow your revenue streams and to make sure that you are keeping your expenses within the limit. Any questions on the basic definitions of financial statements?
Yeah, Prof. So a quick one. So I have always argued with my wife why I will have to drive maybe 5 or 6 miles to go to BJ's to get gas, when I can get the gas right in front of my house. And it turns out exactly what you just explained, maybe a few cents different. But my wife would prefer me to drive that miles to go get the gas. Whereas I think that driving there and driving back will balance the same equation. And so from your perspective and based on what you just taught, is that strategy beneficial to me, the consumer, or it's much beneficial to the company?
All right, that's a wonderful question. Sorry, and thank you for asking that question. The first mistake is don't argue with them. Okay.
Good one.
If you want to have a very nice home, do not argue with them. Just do whatever they want you to do.
Right? Thank
you very much.
Amen.
Right. They said in business, what they say is that the customer is always right. Right. So point number 1, the customer is always right. Point number 2, if you think a customer is wrong, refer to point number 1, which is the customer is always right. right? So, I mean, back to your question, you really, really need to think about it, okay? You are driving from your house all the way to BJ's to get gas. The first thing that I'm going to ask you as a consumer is, what is the quality of gas that you are getting from BJ? It's cheap, but how long would that last you? Okay. Number two, when it comes to purchasing gas within cars, everybody has their preference. Right? My preference is go to Shell. Right? So as a consumer, I'm not even thinking about the price. I'm thinking about the brand name. Okay. So from a consumer perspective, you need to decide what you want. Do you want to buy from Shell because of the name? You know that with Shell, they're not going to give you any crappy gas for your car, okay? Or you want to save that extra cents and go to a BJ or a Costco. From a personal experience, when the pandemic happened last year, I bought my cheapest gas ever at Costco. To fill up my tank, I usually spend between $85 and $100. During the pandemic, I spent $35 to fill up that same car from Costco. Guess what? That gas did not stay in my car for a week.
That's true. That's true. I buy gas from BJ's and it never stayed for a week.
So you need to think about that as a business owner, right? So let's say if you have a fleet of cars, you work in the transportation industry, right? And you have a fleet of cars, and you are sending all these cars to BJ to get your gas because they are cheaper. However, the gas doesn't last in your car. It doesn't give you the same mileage. So you need to come to the table and say, hey, this strategy doesn't seem to work, and do the math. We are spending maybe $100,000 cheaper to get BJ's gas, but we are going there on a very frequent basis. Does it make sense? Does it make economic sense? When you're making all these decisions, please take the emotions out of it. You know, we tend to be very emotional, especially if it's a family-owned business, okay? At that point, you need to put your CEO at home. I'm like, hey, this is not a husband-wife debate. This is a family, this is a business decision. We are going to make a decision that is good for the business. We don't care who is right or who is wrong. That is why we are going to talk about knowing your numbers. What are the numbers telling you? We are saving $100,000 on gas for BJ. We have 100 fleet of cars, but we are going to BJ every week and a half, right? When we go to Shell, we are spending maybe $10,000 more or $15,000 more on the Shell petrol, but we are going to Shell every 2 weeks, right? So you need to do the math and think about which one is beneficial.
So, Professor.
Yes.
Just to piggyback to your reference to Donald Trump, you know, sometimes I'm hesitant to invest in stocks or buildings or bonds, but then I wanted to kind of have your point of view as it pertains to bankruptcy. And I think some of us know that, you know, some of the tactics and strategies that Donald Trump used to get back on his financial track. So I want to know if it's something that you think, if you want to invest aggressively, it's a tactic that you can use, not knowing what will happen in future if you invest in something big, putting all your money in and something go wrong. So I think it's the best approach to look into filing for bankruptcy if that happened.
Yes.
Because if you want to invest in getting a high, invest aggressively in areas.
Yes, good question. My first advice to you as an entrepreneur is don't be scared, right? Good companies take risk, but they don't just take risk, they take calculated risk, all right? Tesla. Can you imagine Tesla coming to me 20 years ago to tell me, share the idea with me of them producing electric cars? I'll tell them that that's insane. Who is going to buy your electric cars? You know, this doesn't make any sense. Why would I bring a car to the house and charge it every night? But these guys took calculated risk. and made sure that they told us what is in it for us, what we are going to get from buying a Tesla, okay? So when you're in a business, don't be scared of taking risk. And one of the risks that you might be faced with is bankruptcy, the risks of bankruptcy. One of the bad connotations that goes with bankruptcy is that when you file bankruptcy, people think it's the end. Maybe it is the end depending on what country you live in, but it's not the end in the United States of America. Bankruptcy means that on the asset and the liability side, you have more liabilities than you have assets, right? So now your business is sinking. So what you're doing is that you are just crying for help. I need help. I need to file for bankruptcy to reorganize myself. So there's two types. There's a Chapter 7 and the Chapter 13. So you go to the court and you tell them, hey, I need to reorganize myself. So you go to the drawing board with your creditors, your liability guys, and you renegotiate your loans. Maybe your loans are due in 5 years. So you go and renegotiate with them that, can you give me a higher duration? I need to pay these loans over a long term. Is that a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. I can't pay. If I can't pay the loans, I can't pay. So I go to different creditors, different investors, tell them, hey, we're not going to pay you dividends for the next 5 years because right now we are in a bind. We don't want the business to go down, but we are reorganizing. That's why it's called bankruptcy reorganization or restructuring. Okay. So you go down, fix your finances, and then you come out again. The best way, the companies that have thrived after bankruptcy is those that have a strong plan, okay? Very, very strong plan. We made mistakes in the past. We are not going to make the same mistakes again. So one thing that could have helped, maybe let's say a Ghana Airways, was to go into a bankruptcy. The problem with the connotation attached to a bankruptcy, because I remember at some point in time, at my job, we're having some challenges. And then I came home and I was having sleepless nights, right? Because I'm like, I do not want this company to go down under my watch. Everybody is going to say, hey, they gave it to Ed and Ed couldn't handle it and all this. But you need to take your egos aside, and we took some hard decisions and then we are thriving now, okay? So bankruptcy is not bad. The Donald has used it to his advantage and he's still surviving. He became a president with all these bankruptcies around his name. Any more questions, or we should just move on?
Yes, I think we should move on because we are running out of time.
All right.
But I think there are some questions in the chat room. I don't know if you can take some of them.
Yes. I will just mention very quickly, and then maybe you can answer at the end. We have 3 questions. I'm going to summarize the questions. First question is making hard decisions. You mentioned about closing up a plant or laying off people. The question that came up was about culture, people management, and a sense of belonging internally during the hard decisions. It is a tactical point as we look at it. And the question is, how crucial is this element for any business for ultimate materialization of the objective financially? And the second question is about branding. We mentioned a good example of the gas whereby it was cheap and the quality was not good. How important is branding, financial management? And the third question was about equity. We mentioned about getting some help from the wife, and you consider that as equity. What is equity exactly? What are we talking about when we say equity? Thank you.
You know that I'm growing old now, so by the time you get to the third question, I've forgotten the first question. So I'm going to answer the third question first. All right. I couldn't fathom the way I've become so forgetful in my 40s, right? Because I was so shocked as a younger person. I'm going to answer the third question because that's what I remember. Okay. Equity means, so the money I took from my wife is a debt, it's a loan. That's not equity. Equity means the amount that I am putting into the business, right? So remember, I took $50,000 from my wife. That's a loan to her. and my friend Benjamin invested $25,000. That's an equity. He didn't give me a loan. He gave me $25,000, and I came up with my own $25,000. So collectively, we have a $50,000 equity. Then the $50,000 loan is to my wife. What's the difference between an equity and a loan? A loan is more structured in such a way that at the end of every period, I need to pay those interest payments. Regardless of whether I make profit or not, I need to be paying those. Equity is different. With the equity, you pay something called dividends. So if the business doesn't make money, I don't get paid. Benjamin doesn't get paid. So that is, there are advantages and disadvantages, and that's more deeper in scope than what this class is about. So I don't want to go deep. But the main difference is that with the loans, you have scheduled payments. So the bank doesn't care whether you work this month or not. They still want their mortgage paid. They don't care whether you lost your job. Do they?
Yeah.
Has your bank ever called you and said, oh, we are sorry that you lost your job, so don't pay your mortgage? Right? But with the equity, whether you lose your job or not, the equity is still there for you. All right, so think about it that way. The second question, if you can give me a hint.
The second question was about branding. How important?
Branding, right? So what companies can do is that they can decide on what kind of branding they want to do. Do you want to be a low cost, right? Low cost brand, or you want to be a high end? So think about your Walmart. When you go to Walmart, you are thinking about low cost, right? When you go to Neiman Marcus or when you go to Nordstrom, then you are dealing with the big boys. So it's different market niche, right? Walmart wants to serve this niche, low cost, low prices. Neiman Marcus or Nordstrom, they have a particular niche. That's why a Neiman Marcus will not come and build a store downtown, right? Walmart build those stores in our communities because that's where their niche is. When you go to the high-end stores, you find those stores there, Neiman Marcus and all those high-end. All those are all strategies that the companies want to adopt. I want to be a high-end BMW, a Mercedes-Benz. All right? And then the first question, you can give me a hint.
It was, you mentioned at some point about making hard decisions where maybe closing up a plant. And the question that came up was about we are dealing with people, and there's also that sense of belonging of your employees. And how, this is a tactical point. How crucial is it?
It's very crucial because, like I said, you know, sometimes you work with people for years and then they become part of your family, right? So let's say I'm the CEO of Chase or Citibank. I mean, that's too big. Let's come down. I'm the CEO of, let's say, a local bank, right? And then we've worked with these people for 30 years. And then this particular location is not making us money. We've done everything with them. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to go to that location and look for the best, those who align with our strategy, okay? The best employees, because you don't want to invest in people and let them go. Over the course of the years, this company is sending you to training, management training sessions, and putting money into you. So I go to the branch, I have about 30 employees, and I'm going to look out for those who align with our strategy, where the company is going. And I'll probably make a hard decision of keeping them or reassigning them to different branches. But those who don't align, forget about the culture, take the emotion out of it, they've got to go. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. I recognize there's another question. However, we can take that in the next session of questions so that you can proceed. Thank you.
All right. So the basic financial statement that we've talked about are your income statement, your retained earnings statement. These are your earnings, retained equity statement. Can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Your balance sheet and your cash flow statement. There are 4. So your income statement gives you your revenues and your expenses, your day-to-day. How much money am I bringing in? How much am I spending, right? And those numbers flow to your retained earnings, which is your equity statement. How much of that money am I keeping in the business? over time, retained earnings, then your balance sheet have beaten that to death, your assets and your liabilities and equity. And your cash flow statement, where are your cash coming from and how are you using your cash? Okay, inflows and outflows. All right. So I took a snip of one of my classes. This was from 2014. It's called Sierra Corp, for you to see the numbers themselves, okay? So your basic income statement, as you can see, your revenues, right? So this company brought in $10,600 in revenues, overall revenues, okay? As of October 31st, 2014. And then look at the expenses, your salary expense, your rent expenses, your supplies, depreciation expense, interest expense, and insurance expense. All those total up to 7,700. So your net income, which is your excess of revenue over expenses, is called net income. It's $2,000, okay? For simplicity reasons, $2,000. If this amount was less, then this one will be called a net loss. You make a loss, okay? But because this was more than your expenses, you made an income. This income flows through to your retained earnings statement. It goes to your retained earnings, okay? What is retained earnings? Again, it is the accumulated income over time or your accumulated losses, all right? So because this is a new company, there was no retained earnings prior to October. But we add your net income and then you pay out your dividends. The dividend is how much money my investors are putting into the business. So they are putting in, me and my friend, we're putting in $25,000 each. So we are paying them dividends of $500, right? And now my retained earnings as of the end of October is now $2,300, right? We started with $2,800, but now at $2,300, okay? All right, this is basic, okay? As simple as it can get. Now this, you see how this is connected? That's why I talked about the balance. This amount flows from here and goes to your income statement, like your retained earnings statement. So if this is out of whack, then your retained earnings is out of whack, right? What we call it in accounting is called garbage in, garbage out. If you put in garbage, you get garbage out, okay? So make sure your financials are in top shape. All right, then we move on to the next one, your balance sheet. Remember I spoke about assets. Your assets are your cash, $100,000 in my example, accounts receivable, your supplies, your insurance, your equipment, right? If you have any equipment in the business, those are your assets. Your assets, this amount, if you're looking at the financial statement, this amount, 21,910, must always equal to your liabilities and your equity, always. So from today, if you look at the financial statement, the first thing that you have to look out for is that this amount, total assets, is always equal to this. So you can go to your accounting department on Monday and ask them for their financial statement and make sure this is balanced. If this is not balanced, tell them that you learned from your class on Saturday that this has to balance, okay? All right. I want you to notice something. The retained earnings from the previous screen, the 2,300, do you see how it comes back here to balance your balance sheet?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The retained earnings in the business, right? So if your net income amount is wrong, your retained earnings amount will be wrong. Your retained earnings amount is wrong. Your balance sheet is wrong. So it's got to flow. Make sure you're getting the right revenues in, back out your expenses, get your net income. Net income flows to retained earnings, back out your dividends, and then the retained earnings come back to your balance sheet, okay? I was in a class one time teaching them, and one of the students was like, why do you get so passionate talking about this boring stuff? This stuff is so boring. And one of the reasons I love this stuff is that it always has to balance, okay? 1 + 1 has to be equal to 2. It's not like calculus, right? You remember calculus and algebra and all those nonsense? X squared and Y squared and all those things. We didn't understand.
Did you say nonsense?
We didn't understand way back in school, dy, dx, and all those things. This has to balance, okay? Whatever you put in is what you get out, okay? You put in money, you get out money. You take a loan, you get money, but you also get a liability in the form of a debt, okay? So it always has to balance. By the way, if you're a math major, I apologize for saying calculus is I really, really didn't understand that thing, and I still don't understand it, okay? But you see how this is so simple? Whatever you're bringing into the business flows out of the business, and then everything balances on your balance sheet, okay? Any questions? Because this gets a little confusing on this particular statement.
Yes, we have a question within this context on the chat. Very interesting question, actually. You're mentioning about financial management. We want to make profit. We want to make money. And here, so the question is, why are we considering dividends? And yet we are yet to make profit. Why? What is the relevance of dividends in this case? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. The relevance of dividends is that anytime somebody invests in your company, right? If somebody comes in there and buys stocks or shares in your company, why are they buying the stocks? They're not just buying the stocks because they love you or they love your company or because you look so nice. They are buying it because they want some returns on their investment, okay? So when somebody invests in your company in a form of equity, the returns that you pay to them is what we call dividends. So think about the way we are dividing up the profit and giving some to our investors, dividends. So you divide and give some to your investors, okay? By the way, I just made it up, dividends.
Okay.
Because it makes more sense, right? You divide some of your profit and give some to your investors. Divide and give dividends. The good thing about dividends is that it doesn't have to be paid. Remember, I gave you dividends and debt or liabilities. When you go to borrow money from the bank, you have to pay both the principal and the interest every month. But the dividends, if you don't make profits, you don't have to pay it. Dividends are only paid out when they are declared by the board. So the board declares out dividends, then we pay. So in years that you are struggling, this can really help you because you don't take money out of the business, but you only pay dividends when the company is making money. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also had one question from Anke. Anke, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, it was not a question, it was about branding. Now, there is another aspect of branding. You go either low brand or high brand. Low brand, you are becoming a generic product provider. The advantage is people are less scared that this product is expensive and people like it sometimes. They like generic, even if the original is the same price. And secondly, the advantage is if you go generic and not highly branded, that when you make a mistake on the product is not right, you are not easily identified as you are the one. But for example, let me use my own sample. I'm a German white lady in Uganda. And the time when I was not having personal brand, people call me all names, Petra, Angela, because they think I'm someone else. But when I own fashion, I no longer get mistaken by another person. What is the advantage? I'm known, and that's me and no other. The disadvantage of having a highly branded product or a person, that if you make a mistake, that mistake wird attributed to your product brand or to your person. So if you go low-key brand, generic, if you make mistake, no problem. It could be any other generic. But if you are a high brand, you may have to swallow all the mistakes you do on the day campaigning. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your contribution, Engineer Anke. So branding is so important. All this come about in your strategic decision-making process, okay? Know your numbers. Know your numbers as a business owner, as a manager, as a financial planner, as a marketing associate, as an IT person, as an entrepreneur. You need to know your numbers, okay? Do not just outsource accounting. A lot of mistakes that business owners do is just outsource accounting. This is so difficult. I don't get it. So let somebody just do the numbers, okay? It's good for me because it always get me a job to do, right? You don't understand your numbers, call me, I'll get a job to do. But you need to know your numbers as a business owner. You need to know where your cash is coming from, and you need to know how the money is being spent, okay? So business is about numbers, knowing those numbers, okay? You don't have to be an accounting expert to be an entrepreneur, okay? But you need to take up a basic financial statement for your company and understand the flow of the numbers, where they're coming from, where they are going to, asking questions, okay? It's also good because it helps you to make decisions, okay? If you are planning to go into different markets, if you want to go do, let's say I'm a Newmont, right? And I want to go mine in, let's say, Uganda or Kenya. I need to know how much money I have now to be able to invest in Kenya. Because think about it, it's a very, very huge undertaking. It's very, very capital intensive. So can we go into, okay, let's circle back. When Ghana found oil, right? One of the problems we had was that we didn't have the finances to go explore, the finances or the expertise to go do the oil. So we had to reach out to all these different companies, right? Mobil, Tallow Oil, and all these different companies, right? So all these different companies had to know their numbers to be able to come to Ghana. If they are not making profits in other markets, in England, in Nicaragua, they will probably not have been able to invest in Ghana. So it's very, very good to know your numbers so you can think strategically, long term. Your numbers also tell a story, okay? You can look at the financials and see where the company is going. I can look at the financials and see that this company might not survive for the next 3 years, 4 years. I can look at the financials and tell you that this company will not be around because of what the numbers is telling me, right? Unless they decide to go cook the books. And that's what Enron and Welcome and all these different companies did, right? That's why they are not here today. Knowing the numbers, you do not also need to lose track of your people, okay? Because the people make sure your company thrives and survives. So don't lose track of your people because you can't quantify the people. A lot of financial analysts or the CFOs just focus so much on the numbers, but you need people to drive the numbers. You need processes, okay? So I like a favorite quote that I got from Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great. You don't want to be a good company, you want to be a great company, okay? By being a great company, you want to make sure that you have the right people on the right bus, in the right seats, okay? That's from Jim Collins, and this is from me, going to the right destination. You can have the right people on the right bus, in the right seat. If you are supposed to be going from Accra to Kumasi and you take me to Cape Coast, I've gone to a different destination. We need to make sure we are aligned with our people. Put your people first. Put your processes in place. Make sure your product is top-notch, right? Put the right people in place. I went to a party last week and somebody asked me that if I'm a hiring manager and then my son comes to me and then somebody else comes to me and my son is less qualified than the person, would I hire my son over the person? I'm like, no, I won't. Like, no, but you're different. I'm like, no, because I want my company to thrive. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make sure that I invest in my son to get a qualification for him to come and do the job. I'm not just going to put my son over a segment just because he's my son. You can easily lose your business by doing that, okay? Make sure you are putting the right people in the right places. If it's your wife, make sure they are trained. Train them. Train your cousins. Make sure you are putting them in the right places and then get them to the right destination, okay? Finally, what numbers do we need to know? What numbers do you need to know? You need to know your sales numbers. If you're in a service industry, you need to know your service numbers, right? I gave you an example of being a mechanic. How many cars am I servicing in a month, right? I'm servicing maybe 10 cars in a month. How can I increase that to 15 cars in a month? How can I increase that to 20 cars in a month? If you're in a catering business, how can you increase your customer base to 15, 20, 30, okay? If you're in a sales business, how can you maximize your sales? You need to know your profit and loss, right? Because this is an international webinar, I didn't put a dollar sign or a CD sign, I put the Bitcoin, okay? Because Bitcoin is the real deal, it's what is coming up. You need to know your gross margins, right? What are your margins? What are your profits? You need to know your pricing. Don't price yourself out of a business. Just because everybody is coming to you doesn't mean that you need to increase your price, right? And that is very typical in businesses. There's a lot of demand, so they just increase their price arbitrarily. Make sure it makes sense. Let the customer get value out of the pricing, okay? When they come to you, let them have that touch, that personal touch, okay? In terms of branding, if you are scouting, then you have a brand to follow, right? I hear that their vision or their mission is called gentlemen and women serving gentlemen and women or something, okay? So they put so much money in what they do, okay? If you are a mom and pop hotel, know yourself, know your brand. This is what I can do within the numbers, okay? I cannot go there and buy expensive stuff for my customers when I'm charging them $50 a night for them to spend a night in my hotel. Make sure it makes sense, okay? Check your inventory. Inventory is money. It is very key. Check the expiry date. You know, a lot of people do businesses where they don't check the expiry date, right? So they go in there, just buy the product without looking at the expiry date, ship them to wherever they are going to, and then they find out within 3 months that those products are expiring. Well, if you live in a well-structured society, you can't sell them to your customers. You've got to throw them away. That is money that you are throwing away. So check your inventory. Make sure you have a good inventory tracking system. Know how much inventory is coming in, what is going out. Look out for theft and shrinkage, right? Shrinkage means the inventory that are being destroyed that you are throwing away. Make sure you keep track of that. Look at your cash flows, your payments, your receivable. The key word with receivables and payables is that with your receivable, when somebody owes you money, you need to expedite that, your collection, right? With your payable, slow down. So you slow down your payables, expedite your receivable, right? So in business, let's say if I buy something on credit, right? And the payment term says that I need to pay it in 30 days. When I get the invoice today, if today is 1st of October, I'm not going to pay the invoice today. I'm going to make sure I stretch it as much as I can, right? Because that money sitting in the bank is making interest for me. So don't be late, because when you get late, you get charged a late fee, so it defeats the whole purpose. But make sure you are stretching your payables and expediting your receivables, because if you don't collect on time, those become what we call bad debt. And bad debt are ultimate losses. If somebody owes you, right, $100,000 in your business, and they haven't paid you in 3 years, guess what? I don't think they are going to pay you. So we call it bad debt. You need to write it off. It becomes a loss. So what do you need to do? You need to strengthen your controls around receivables, right? So you put people in there that are going to make those calls. As soon as your mortgage is not paid by the 30th days, you get a call on an alert from your bank, right? They are alerting you that you haven't been paid. Then it goes to the 15 days, and then they keep alerting them. Now they start calling you. And at some point, they bring in the collection agencies. What they are trying to do is using this concept of maximizing their receivables and slowing down their payables, all right? Finally, what are our key takeaways? Now we know the difference between being strategic and being tactical, right? Everybody knows that, right? What is strategic? Right. Strategic is long-term, tactical is short-term. Let your strategy drive your tactics. We know the basic financial statements. You know your numbers. What numbers are you looking out for? You're looking out for your equity numbers. You're looking out for your debt. You're making sure that you're not filing bankruptcy. You're making sure that the business is thriving, right? You need to do all these things through budgeting and forecasting, right? You need to forecast. Once you're able to put something on paper, then you work towards that, okay? And finally, let your strategy drive your tactics, okay? Let your strategy drive your tactics. If you are in a business of manufacturing laptops, let the tactics that you do on a day-to-day basis drive that strategy, okay? Thank you very much. I think we have about 5 to 10 minutes to take some questions. And then.
Thank you very much. It was a very nice interactive session. And a question that comes up now, we've recognized that we found ourselves in the COVID era last year, and so many other continuing businesses were affected. There are also those businesses that are starting up. Well, how is it? What's the difference now between financial management strategy for a startup and a continuing business, looking at the current situation globally?
So that's a loaded question, right? Because depending on the kind of industry or sector you are in, you have either been impacted positively or negatively, right? Think about it. If you're in the pharmaceutical industry, right, and you guys are manufacturing all these COVID vaccines, you guys are laughing all the way to the bank, right? Because everybody has to take this vaccine. So let's say in the United States, there's about 300 million people and 60% of the people take vaccines, right? And there's only 4 companies that are manufacturing this vaccine. There's Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and maybe another one. 60% of 300 people just in the United States. Now think global, right? You can go to Africa, China, Russia, all these people need vaccines. So these companies are thriving. Now come to think about a company like if you are in a cruise industry, a cruise line, people are scared to go on a cruise because of the limited space, right? So it doesn't matter whether you are a startup or you are being in business, it's how you reinvent yourself. Go back to the drawing board. If you're a cruise company, right, take risk. Start offering customers discounts. You tell them to come in if they are vaccinated, show their vaccination card. Start letting them tell their stories, how it's safe for them, how you guys are cleaning up the ship, how you guys are using sanitizers all over the place, how people, about 100 people went on a cruise and none of them came back infected, right? Tell your story. Go out there and reinvent yourself, okay? If you are in a hotel industry, reinvent yourself, right? If you are like a football, let's say a football, right? NFL or British Premier League. Last year, they had no supporters coming toward the games, right? Look at the amount of revenues that they lost on match days. Some of these stadiums taking about 60,000 spectators. On average, if a spectator is paying about $10 times 60,000, they lost all those revenues. So what are they doing? They are reinventing themselves and having people coming into the stadium with all this mask mandate and vaccination mandate and everything, because they cannot keep on losing those customers over the long term. That's how you go out of business, right? So that revenue stream is blocked, but you need to reinvent yourself and start being aggressive with what you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that wrap up. And now I would like to turn back to Ms. Alma and Dr. Jacobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. It's a blessing to have you, and I want to thank each and every one of you for participating in this very powerful presentation. I have learned a lot. There were a lot of things that I thought I knew, but I just realized that I didn't know them at all until today's section. I have always known about equity. I've always known about bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy is a term I don't even want to hear. In fact, especially those with African descent who lives in the diaspora, we don't even want to hear the word bankruptcy at all. But today, we've been told that bankruptcy is not really a bad thing. It's a business strategy, and it also helps you to recoup. So thank you so much, Prof. And so, guys, before we go, I want us to, each and every one of us to, if possible, unmute ourselves, and let's give a round of applause to Professor. If you can turn on a video, even the better, so that we can give Prof a very good clap.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's splendid.
Thank you all also for coming in. I know some of these topics are boring, so for you to come here on a Saturday, thank you for your time as well, because without you, I can't do this thing. Okay.
It's boring because you didn't get calculus, so it's the same as accounting.
Kindly share the presentation with us.
Yes. The presentation will be shared. The alumni president Amma and our vice president Caroline will make sure all of you get the presentation. And before I hand over to Caroline, I also want to say that since we are all gathered here, it's also important to say happy birthday to you, Caroline. Yesterday was your birthday. So congratulations to you. Happy birthday. Just turned 16 years.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Caroline. Happy birthday, Caroline.
Waiting for the party.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, sis.
We're going to drink.
All righty. So Caroline is based in the Netherlands, so she's joining us all the way from the Netherlands. And so once again, I want to thank all of you. In case you are not a member of our alumni club, you have to take a course in our program in order for you to at least 20-hour credit in order to become an alumni. And so this course that you've taken is a 2-hour course, so that goes for a credit for you in future when you attend subsequent programs and you meet the required grade. We will enroll you into our alumni program. But before I hand over to Caroline, I see Professor Chibuna all the way in California here. You guys remember Professor Chibuna?
Yes.
He lectured us on customer service. And so when Professor Atuahene was talking about customer service, I guess he was smiling. Professor Chibuna, I want to say hello to her before we go.
Hello, everyone. I have enjoyed today's session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello to you too.
All righty. All right. So, Caroline, I hand over to you so we can wrap it up, and then we can give Professor Atuahene some break to go take care of other things.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacobs, for this platform and really helping us in getting this into action. We've been looking for it. It's been amazing. I have learned something. I remember I used a decision between medium, large, and small. So today I will consider the finances management in that context. Thank you very much, Professor Ed Atuahene, for your time. And most importantly, for the knowledge that you've shared with us. We really value your time and value the knowledge you've shared with us. And again, thank you very much to your team. Good to see you again after a long time. It's amazing to see you. I hope you're smiling because I'm feeling like... And thank you very much for your continued engagement. We've had really interactive engagement in our platforms. We also see members who have joined our Facebook group. Yes, you're welcome to join again. Please join again, and we meet there in the Facebook. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you to Jagils Institute for this opportunity, for keeping us together. We didn't know each other, but now we are a team. Thank you very much. And most of all, thank you, Ms. Amma, for great work that you're supporting us. Thank you for supporting the council group. And that is all from me. I wish you a blessed day, good evening, good afternoon. Be blessed. Thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you so much. Thank you to you all. God bless you, Professor Atuahene, once again. Thank you so much
Thank you, Caroline.
for your love. Thank you. We appreciate you. All right. God bless you and have a blessed day. And thank you to you all. Catch you up later. All right. Bye-bye.
Hi, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Caroline.
Bye.
Happy birthday once again.
Bye, everyone.